Have you ever noticed that the more popular a booktube channel gets, the more likely they are to hold their books backwards? Like, I'm not sure if it's like a clickbait thing, but like, if I was like optimizing for SEO, I'd put like the spines outward, so in case somebody recognizes a book, like they'd be more likely to click on the video, but whatever. All right, so today I have a combo tag for you today. I was tagged by Justin at Triumphal Reads, and it's the check-in tag and the mid-year freakout tag. So we combined these because not all the questions of the freakout tag are like related to my channel, especially like the ones that are more geared towards fiction, like with characters and stuff like that. And then the check-in tag, most of the questions are repetitive in that regard. So we get them both together, and again, for better SEO, we're here. Cool. All right, so we'll answer the first two questions from the check-in tag and then kind of hop over to the mid-year tag. All right, so first question, and that's how many books did I read this year? So right now I'm sitting at 31, which I believe puts me 4 books ahead of reading my 1 book a week goal. And that's pretty good. I need a little bit of padding. As you can see from like my last wrap up, I read 12 books in 1 month, but prior to that, I only read 18. So I can read in spurts. Like I can usually try to hit my 1 book a week, but I can get behind and then I can just kill a lot of books at one time. So if this fall develops into like a good busy season for us in our business, I might need a little bit of padding. So I'm looking to extend that at the moment, but all in all, I'm pretty happy with where I am right now. The second question is, what genre have I read most this year? And I think it's pretty obvious that that's going to be nonfiction. To narrow that down and give you a real answer, within nonfiction, I've been reading mostly longevity sciences, anti-aging books, stuff like that. Obviously, that's one of my big interests, as with the name of the channel and everything. And I'm probably going to put more of that into my TBR coming up for the end of this year, but I want to keep things pretty diverse. As you've seen, I've read a lot of like civil rights and like African American studies recently, as well as I want to dive into some philosophy more and some pretty diverse range of books. Next question, my favorite book so far, and I would have to say that is Hacking Darwin by Jamie Metzl. And this was a really fun book. So it gives you a touch on the history of genetics, just to kind of get you set up for what it really wants to talk about. And what it really wants to talk about is where we are with genetic engineering right now, what's currently happening, and then what's in our near future that we need to talk about. And kind of the reason this is my favorite book so far is this does what I wish a lot of nonfiction books did, especially in the sciences, where it has like a little bit of healthy speculation. And I know a lot of authors pretty much don't do this because they can either be seen as reductionist if they don't portray every potential avenue, or they're kind of like they can date the book if it turns out wrong or something turns out not to be the case. But the reason he speculates here is because if we don't think about certain possibilities, we could be hitting for a very real dystopian future. So he talks about like eugenics and whatnot, as far as bad countries getting the technologies to genetically engineer like superhumans and other kind of really wild stuff. This book also has a lot of like cool things in it that can make you really optimistic, such as how many diseases we can just eliminate with genetic engineering, or how many birth defects we can get around, and really hopeful future optimist stuff as well. So it is a book that is like intertwined with future optimism and just the potential of the dystopian future on the horizon. So I really do believe this is a good book to read because it can educate you for some conversations that might be coming up on the horizon. Next question, the biggest disappointment this year. And besides me, that would be Principles by Ray Dalio. Yeah, I touched on this in the last video. It wasn't hitting on much. So if you're not familiar, Principles is a kind of business book that you'll see a lot of like different entrepreneurs recommending. And Ray here is the founder of Bridgewater, which is like a hedge fund investment firm. And he did some cool cutting edge stuff where he did like computational models before that was kind of a thing to kind of set himself apart from the crowd. The bio about Bridgewater, the company, is pretty good in here. But the other 2/3 of the book where he talks about his personal principles is where it fell flat for me. like, when I picked this up, I wanted business advice, and kind of what I got was generic life lessons, if that makes sense. Like, be radically transparent and radically honest, and stuff like that. Like, I was kind of looking for more actionable things that weren't just kind of, I guess, moralistic. This book might be good for a lot of people, and I see a lot of people recommending it, probably for a reason. But for me, it was my biggest disappointment, compared to the expectations I had going into it. Next question, we had my favorite new to me or debut author. And so this is kind of 2 in 1. This is Lifespan by David Sinclair. So it's his first book, as well as the first one I've read of him. I wish he put out more information. Similarly to Hacking Darwin, Sinclair talks about our near future, specifically within ending aging here. And where this book is kind of like foundational reading in like longevity sciences right now is it lays out his information theory of aging. I'm not going to touch on it too much because I've already covered this in 2 videos, and I don't want to bore the people that have already seen this, so check the tag if you want to learn more about this book. Now, that being said, I would provide an alternate answer to this question as well. And my other favorite book this year, or favorite author that I plan on reading more of, since David Sinclair I'm not going to be able to read more of because he doesn't have any more books, but that's going to be Why Buddhism is True by Robert Wright. And this was a really cool book because the way the author combines personal experiences, memoir style, with evolutionary psychology, with like just humor. It was a fun read that was useful and is based by science. So it's kind of like the trifecta of what a good science book should be, in my opinion, if you're not reading it for academic reasons. So it's accessible to like the average reader, and it's just fun. Plus, at the end of the day, you might take something home with it that will actually permanently affect your mindset and could be actionable in a day-to-day life. So he has a lot of other books out. Specifically, there is a book I want to get my hands on, which is The Moral Animal, Why We Are the Way We Are, New Science of Evolutionary Psychology. And I just want to read more of his thought process on a lot of different aspects of evolutionary psychology. So that's something I'm looking to get into. Right. Then we have a book that made me happy. And I think a lot of books make me happy for different reasons. If this is aimed at like fictional readers or like novels or classic literature, I think it has a different meaning than aimed at like a nonfiction reader. So I get pleasure from books for learning new things, or like being able to connect abstract ideas and come up with like different just connections between books, which I guess you can totally do in classic literature and everything. But for me, getting pleasure out of a book might not be the same thing as a typical reader getting pleasure out of a book, like as in a fun read. So if I had to determine like what was my funnest read, as in like my most pleasurable, like what made me happy outside of just connecting ideas and learning new information, it would have to be Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman by Richard Feynman. This book, it was just fun. But it was like a collection of little stories about Feynman's life. And now Feynman was like a super interesting character, worked on the Manhattan Project and everything. But outside of that, he just seems like a real personality. And it was fun reading about him. I have read reviews, be warned if you're picking this up, that he kind of comes across as chauvinistic at times and like full of himself and narcissistic. But for me, that gets me on the side of the character, and it kind of feels like you're part of the inside of the joke. Like, I don't know. It was just fun to read. Then we have the most beautiful book, and that is going to be this chunk, which is Boundless by Ben Greenfield. Now, this is a book I'm about 200 pages through out of 600. And basically what it is a collection of like 20 different topics of areas of people's life that you can improve. So this is aimed at like biohackers and just people that are trying to optimize and eke out advantages in their life, I guess. So it goes through a bunch of different topics, everything from like nutrition to exercise to like nootropics and supplements. But let me get to the contents here and just kind of show you. Hopefully you can see this. Maybe pause, maybe zoom. I don't know how this works. But they talk about everything from longevity to rituals to spirituality and just basically ways you can optimize your life. Do be warned, a little bit of it does come across as wooey, but a lot of it's based in science and it's very well sourced. So personally, I am going through and checking the sources and making sure like the sources of different topics are coming across in ways that I think are reliable. So as far as like the nutrition and like the supplement side of things, which I'm a little bit more familiar with, it's easy to see those sources. But like he talks about like some EMF radiation as well as like grounding and deionization, which seem a little far out and wooey to me. But I haven't gotten through like combing through the sources in that regard yet. But the reason it's on this tag for the most beautiful book is that just the way it's laid out in the different chapters, the photos in the book, and just the accessibility of the information, for me, it's just insanely pleasurable to read and work through. It's almost like a textbook in a way, but not. Like, it's useful and it's broken down by subject, if you would, but you don't want to read it all in one sitting. It's not something you start at the front of and read towards the back and just you're done with it. It's something like you kind of read like one chapter at a time. Like, so if I'm trying to optimize sleep, I'm going to spend a day or two reading tips on sleep, testing, coming back to the book, seeing what worked, recording results, and keep going. So you'll be seeing more of this book. I have 2 or 3 other books like this that I'm going to be doing a video on coming up. But yeah, most beautiful book so far this year. And then we have books that I would like to read before the end of the year. And for me, I don't necessarily have a list of titles, but I do kind of have an idea in my head of how I want to divide up the reading for the rest of the year. And I kind of want to do it in thirds. So I want to do a third of my reading that is on personal sciences, like related to life. So sleep, exercise, mind, body, spirit stuff, and something that can lead to actionable results. If I do X, then Y should occur, and I can measure the results. So kind of like self-experimentational reading. As you know, I've only been reading for like a year. I was never great in school, so a lot of this is kind of like me trying to build my own education in a way, because I really didn't take schooling seriously while I was there. So a lot of this is me building up just knowledge or information that I think I should have on how to like build a good life, a good healthy life. And I'm trying to stay away from like the cringy self-help stuff. You'll see like on my Goodreads that I've read like How to Win Friends and Influence People and some other generic books like that, but we're trying to stick more to the hard sciences type of thing. But anyways, the second third of books I would like to do is diving more into philosophy and theory of thought. And so I just finished an online course. Coursera is doing like online free courses with COVID relief type of thing. So I took Introduction to Philosophy through the University of Edinburgh, and it kind of like whetted my interest in that. So I have a few books coming in all about introductions to philosophy, and then within that I'd like to branch out and read about a third of my reading within that category. So we have like personal sciences, which can lead to actionable results. Then we have philosophy, and then the third is kind of a catch-all category, which is going to be my diverse reading. So whether that is memoirs or life cycles of trees or cultural studies and sociology and psychology, that's going to be a third of my reading is just going to be wild cards and going to be whatever. So I can throw in books from viewers, I can do read-alongs if those come along, and just really have a category that I set aside to not be restricted by the first 2 categories, which are currently my main interest. Yeah, and I think that kind of wraps up the tag. The last question is who would I recommend or tag in this video? And I'm going to tag 3 new channels that I came across. So the first one is Ivan Brave. Of course, these links will all be down in the comments. The second one is Zim Reads, and the third is Druv at Druv's Reading Nook. And all 3 of these channels I found this week and interacted with a little bit, and they all just seem like cool individuals that I'd like to hear more of their thoughts from on Booktube, and like to give them a little bit of a push with the little bit of following that I do have. So head over to their channels and send them a love, or send them some love. And as always, if you like this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Definitely helps me out. And let me know if you have any tips or criticism in the comments below. I'll try to respond to everything. See you around.